This podcast contains explicit language and content and is for mature audiences only.
Hey, you teenagers out there. If you're under 18, this show is more for your parents. So now that you have that mental picture stuck in your head, put some music on and get back to doing your homework.
We are a longtime married couple who's decided to chronicle our personal adventures and share our sex-positive discussions as we navigate our way through the swinging lifestyle.
Care to join us?
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Mr. Jones.
And I'm Mrs. Jones, and this is episode 12 of the We Got a Thing podcast. We are freshly back from New Orleans, and we're still maybe slightly sleep deprived, but yeah, you don't get a lot of sleep in New Orleans.
That was a heck of a party.
That was a heck of a party. Yeah, we got home Sunday midday. This is Friday, by the way. And we got home on Sunday afternoon, and we walked into the house, and we immediately went to bed and slept.
I did. I went to sleep for about 2 or 3 hours.
We had a family birthday party that night, and it was like, oh boy, we gotta get some sleep so we can function.
It didn't help that I booked a 7:30 a.m. flight.
Yeah, what was he thinking?
Yeah.
Seriously.
So we had to get up at like 5 o'clock.
That was the worst $200 you ever saved.
Yeah, no, I couldn't help myself. At any rate, we had a great time, and the only thing I can say is you need to go.
You need to go.
If you didn't go, you need to go.
Yep. This, if you haven't listened to us before, this is the second time we went. We were fairly new. We were extremely new when we went last year, and
right.
And we had a lot of anxiety about meeting 1,500 other swingers, and this year I think we went with an open mind and just kind of let the weekend unfold, and unfold it did.
But first, we need to start with keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes.
I mean, we just want to talk about Naughty New Orleans.
I know.
But we did have some other fun.
Life did exist before Naughty New Orleans, yes.
Yeah, so prior to New Orleans, we went to dinner in Washington, D.C. with a couple that we met in Cassidy, and we had a great evening with them. What was the name?
We had met them one other time at an event.
Yeah.
And we kind of saw them from afar and chatted with them a little bit. And when we left the event, I said, gosh, Mr. Jones, it's a shame we didn't get to talk to them some more, get their contact information. But luckily, we chatted with them enough, and I think they found us, right?
Yeah, they reached out to us on Cassidy, and then I showed you their profile, and you said, oh, thank goodness, that's the couple that we wanted to connect
that was so
with.
exciting. Right. So we got to reconnect with them.
We almost didn't meet with them because, we asked them to... Because we live south, we live in Virginia, and they're in D.C., and we asked them to pick out a place to eat, and the first menu that she sent us, I looked at the menu, and it was $135 a person.
It was a tasting menu, prepared by the chef.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the basic tasting menu was $135 a person, and then if you wanted to add the wine pairings on, it was extra $70 per person, and we were like, oh boy.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, now what do we do? Do we admit that we're poor, or do we just choke out the money? And finally we said...
we're not poor, we're just very middle class.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too rich for our blood. But thankfully when I did that, she replied right away, and she says, oh my goodness, I didn't even look at the menu. That's really out of our price range too. And so the good thing about it was they picked a nice French...
She did an amazing job of picking a restaurant.
Yeah.
It was just a little French bistro, and...
Yeah, and it was a townhome that had been converted into a restaurant, and it had those big, thick, red velvet curtains that separated the tables. So it was perfect for sexy conversations. And
we must have had like swinger written all over our foreheads when we walked in, because they put us in this little private alcove.
Right. And every once in a while, the waiter would jump through the curtains and surprise us a little bit, and we would regroup. But it was an amazing meal, and we really connected with them, and I think we're going to see them again next month.
Yeah, we are going to see them again.
Right. And then we had, I don't even know if we can call this, is it officially a house party? I guess.
I don't know. We had 2 couples over to our home.
Right.
So it was a very intimate house party.
Yeah, and it was a little bit of an experiment that turned out wonderful.
It did.
Yeah, so we were going to meet with another couple here that we'd played with before at our house, and our house was empty for the weekend. And then another couple reached out to us, and we had met that. Well, no, we had been at a house party before. Actually, it was the episode we recorded about the guy who was naked at the table.
The dick and the deviled eggs.
Yeah, they were at that party too, and we got there late that night, so we didn't get to meet everybody. But they were there, and they recognized us, I think, and they reached out to us and said, "Hey, are you guys interested to get together?" And then coincidentally, the couple that we had invited down here had just met the same couple at a meet and greet the week before.
Yeah.
So
and really hit it off with them.
Yeah. So we said, "Do you all mind if we invite this other couple down?" And they didn't. They said the more the merrier. And so we reached out to the other couple and said, "Hey, the four of us are going to get together at our house for an evening. Would you be willing? You were interested in joining us?" And they said they would, and they ended up coming down for the evening. They live about an hour and a half away, so they made quite the heroic effort to get back from vacation and drive down. And
to their credit, I mean, they had never met us face to face before. They had met the other couple,
right,
but they had just met them at a meet and greet, so there hadn't been any play between them and the other couple. And I think they knew that the other couple and us were good friends and that we had played multiple times.
Right.
So they were walking into a really unfamiliar situation.
Right.
And they just came and with the most open minds and the most spirited attitude. They're both gorgeous.
Yeah.
And just outgoing, and we just instantly clicked.
Yeah. And
all six of us did.
And our other friend, after we got finished eating, she just put it on the table. "Okay, let's just get it out in the open. What are you all comfortable with?" And we were like, "Okay, well, it's a conversation we
Our
need
friend
to
is a must to have at a party.
Yeah.
She is so good.
Yes.
And the thing is she can do it without being pushy or making people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But she just has the ability to put it out there and make it fun.
Yeah. So let's skip to the chase. So we all agreed that we were all comfortable with soft swap.
Yeah.
And we love that. We love the fact that you can have a conversation with two other couples and everybody expresses their boundaries, and we automatically go to that point where everybody is most comfortable.
Right.
And that night it was soft swap, and we hadn't met them before, so that was really natural.
So we were in our family room, and I got out a little card game, and it was a card game made for group play, and there were like 4 categories of cards, and one of them was kind of an adventurous action type card, and one of them was a thought card where you kind of had to give your opinion on something, and one of them was like a survey card. I don't know what all the categories were, but
action card.
But we broke it. We had to break into 2 teams. So that ended up getting fun really fast, and somehow the clothes managed to come off fairly quickly.
The gentleman of the couple that were new, that didn't know us, he had to take his pants off, and he had like these silk boxers.
They were awesome. They were like these bright royal blue silk boxers.
So right away we were
and he had really sexy legs to go with those silk boxers.
Okay,
it
so
worked.
You expected
they were working for him, let me tell you.
He was prepared.
And he happened to be sitting between me and the lady that we've been friends with for a long time. So the poor guy, he didn't stand a chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we quickly, if you follow us on Twitter, you saw the picture the next morning with the clothes laying all over. That's where we were playing the game. But anyway,
it looked like a clothes bomb went off in our family room the next morning.
So we all went upstairs into, we had prepared our master bedroom, and we all came in there, and we, it was very comfortable. I mean, everybody was really kind of eased into it, and I think the ladies started.
We did start.
Yeah. And the guys kind of joined in after that, and there was it was just a natural flow. I don't think I remember exactly how things went, but there was girl play.
You know why we don't remember how things went? Because it was so fluid.
It was.
It was so much fun, because it wasn't like you would say, time out, time to switch.
Right.
It just naturally flowed from person to person to person. And it was just so sexy and easy.
Right.
Like there was no awkwardness. And we had never met this couple before they walked into our home.
Right.
Other than some really nice correspondence.
Right.
But they were just a great couple.
Right. And we did get to talk to them a little bit beforehand.
Yes, we did.
But we're really excited because we are going to see them again, just the 4 of us, so we can get to know them.
Just in a few weeks, I think.
In a few weeks. So anyway, boy, just the 2 times that we've had 6 people together,
It's worked really well.
Yeah. It just seems to flow,
Yeah.
and there seems to be less pressure, and it's not a very large group, so you can still connect individually, and that just turned out to be a wonderful surprise.
It was.
I was stressed about orchestrating the whole thing, but I think it turned out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they had to leave and drive an hour and a half home.
Yeah, we had invited them to spend the night,
Right.
but they were having, I think they had found some place for their daughter to spend the weekend, but it was the dog.
Yeah. Yeah, the dreaded dog.
I know.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, they weren't able to spend the night, and they kind of had to leave. Not in the middle of play, but things were kind of winding down.
But we made the best of the situation, because
we did.
When they left, the four of us were saying, well, anybody want to go for round 2?
And there was an incredible round 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another full swap episode, and a lot of fun, and our bodies were laying on the floor, they were on the bed, and it was it was an amazing time.
Yeah, we found out our bed. We have a weird bed. We have a sleep number bed, and our old house, the master bedroom wasn't a really big bedroom, so a king size bed would have really overpowered it. So we had a queen size frame, and we bought a sleep number bed, and they can do this thing called expanded queen where it hangs over just like 3 inches on each side. So we have this like a little bit bigger than a queen size bed, but not a king size bed, and it's really hard to fit 6 people in there.
I know we're gonna have to really come up with another 6-person solution.
I know we are, because I threw our friend on the floor, and I was giving him a blowjob on the floor and made him lay on the rug next to the bed.
The two of you were.
Well, he and I started out down there, and then his wife ended up helping me finish. And poor guy, his tailbone was probably bruised after that.
Yeah, so that's a good problem to have when you have to find a bigger bed for swinger parties.
Yeah,
so
really.
We're looking forward to solving that problem for the next time. And then, so that was a success. And then we ended up spending an evening with a couple that we met at Notting, New Orleans, 2014.
Yes.
That live about an hour and a half away from us. And
we hadn't seen them. So we met them in July or August, I guess it was.
Right.
And then we got together with them in September.
Right. Well, they came up here.
Yeah, they came up here and spent the weekend. And unfortunately, we're busy, they're busy. And an hour and a half sounds close until you try to compare calendars. And we weren't able to get together with them until a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And it was just like old times. It was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, when you have friends like that, it doesn't really matter if it's 2 months or 6 months or 8 months. You get back together and you pick right back where you left off. And they have an apartment. They live on acreage, but then they have an apartment in an old downtown section of where we were. So the four of us were able to invade that apartment for the night, and there was a local brewery we went to, and we got a growler filled with beer and caught up. And then we went to a bar and had martinis, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and then
and sushi and appetizers, and then we went to like a British pub.
Yes, yeah.
And had dinner. And our friend is totally enamored by the peach martinis at this British pub. And I'm thinking, peach martinis, those are probably pretty wimpy. How strong could a peach martini be? Oh, silly me. The peach martinis were amazing.
Yep.
And they packed quite the punch.
Right.
Yes.
And then we came back to their apartment, and I think you had one of your games with you, didn't you? You had a card game with you?
I had the same card game.
Right.
Yeah,
and I think we made it through about 1 or 2 rounds of the card game, and then
something about a blowjob, and it was over.
You had to give him a blowjob.
I did. So we got started, and you all were supposed to watch.
We did
for like 15 seconds.
Well, when you didn't stop,
because as soon as we got started, we were like, okay, well, let's turn around and see, watch them watching us. Say, hey, look how good we are. And we were like, what the hell? You weren't even watching us. You guys were doing your own thing.
We were on the chase lounge.
We thought we were putting on a show.
It was like, game over. Game over. We're going to game number 2.
Oh, that was so much fun. And the next morning, we were having to look like between the cracks of the sofa cushions and under the sofa to make sure that, because there were cards like strewn everywhere.
Yeah.
It got a little crazy.
Yeah.
And there was a bottle of liqueur 43 involved in that after the peach martinis.
Well, and then there was wine also. I had some wine, and that was after the beer, and that was after the martinis. So it was when you have friends like that, it's, every once in a while you meet a couple that you develop a friendship with. And whether we, whatever happens in the future as far as playing with them, that's a couple that they're just a really solid couple, and we really enjoy being with them. So
the play is great, but it's like the icing on the cake because they're such amazing people to just hang with.
Yes. Right. Another benefit from being in the lifestyle.
Yes.
So when that's keeping up with the Joneses, and finally I'm going to turn you loose. So when we come back, we're going to talk about our adventures, our hot, steamy, sexy, and naughty adventures in New Orleans. So,
hot, hot, hot.
Yeah, we'll be right back. Okay, Naughty New Orleans 2015, and the music that you are hearing and just heard was from a gentleman by the name of Plink Floyd. That's not like Pink Floyd, it's Pink Floyd with an L, so Plink Floyd. And his CD is called Nickels and Diamonds, and he plays the plectrum banjo. And
whatever that is, it was awesome.
Yeah, we saw him. We went to breakfast a couple of mornings at one of our favorite spots on Bourbon Street, and that was Cafe Beignet.
Mm-hmm. There's two Cafe Beignets. There's one on Royal Street and one on Bourbon Street. And we love the one on Bourbon Street because they have live music every time we've gone there, whether last year and this year. It's been amazing.
So we heard him. He was playing while we were eating our beignets and having our cafe olays and our Cajun hash browns.
Cajun hash browns. Oh my gosh. It was potatoes and bell peppers and onions and spicy andouille sausage.
And it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. It was already 95 degrees.
Oh my gosh, sunny. We were sweating like pigs. But his music made it all worthwhile we had to stand in line. And it was awesome.
Yeah, so we went up and bought one of his CDs, and I asked him permission if we could play it on our podcast. And so that's what you heard coming back in. And there's a link to his website and his CD on our show notes, so feel free to check it out. So, there were a lot of podcasters, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. There's a lot of podcasters at Naughty in New Orleans, and every one of them there is probably going to be podcasting about Naughty New Orleans.
No doubt.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do just a quick summary of the conference, and then we're going to get into just a few of the things about the weekend where we had the most memorable experiences. Is that a good way to put it?
It is. We had a lot of fun, but we also learned a lot about ourselves. We learned a lot about the lifestyle. Right. We just, it was just an all around amazing experience.
Yeah. What a growth opportunity when you go there for 4 days. So basically the summary of the conference is this. It starts early in the week. We got there Wednesday afternoon.
They have like a pre-conference night on Tuesday.
Yeah. So Wednesday you get there. Every day they have seminars and workshops. Then they have bar takeovers. Then they have then you go to dinner, and then in the evening there's a theme, and the themes are going to be different each night. And so they have dances in the big ballroom, and then at 11 or so at night they open the playrooms, and you just repeat that 4 days in a row, with the exception of the first night when there's the parade. Yeah. Which got rained out.
Oh, it was awful. Yeah. It was going to be like a pajama parade, and it was going to end at a venue where there was going to be like a cabaret burlesque type show. And there was like thunderstorms rolling through. So it would rain and then it would not rain. And then you'd hear thunder and then it would kind of go away. And poor Bob and Tess that run this event. I mean, what a responsibility they had to keep, 1,800 swingers safe.
Right.
From lightning and thunder. So, at first it was like the parade was on. Well, personally, I don't like getting wet. So, I was
You mean on
reluctant
the
to go
outside?
out. Well, yeah, I like being wet for a reason, not because I've been,
More on that
rained
later,
and
right?
yeah, right. So we kind of hung back in the lobby, and sure enough, we made the right call because eventually they canceled the parade, and they did such a good job of improvising.
They did. Yep.
I mean, they really are a class act, and they know how to put on a big event.
So real quickly, instead of doing a parade, everybody moved upstairs to the large ballroom. They got a DJ going, and they brought all the floats up the freight elevators, and they brought the floats out into the room. And Michael and Holly from Playboy Radio were the hosts and the marshals of the parade, and they had the majorettes marching behind them, and then the floats, and Bob and Tess came by. So
little dance routines. It was incredible.
Yeah, they did the little parade, and then they got out of the way, and the DJ played music, and the dance started. So they really did salvage, what was could have been a disaster, but they turned it into a positive. So anyway, please, look at the website if you want to know the details of the conference.
FrenchConnections.com.
Yeah, French Connections
is the name
events,
of their,
I think, and then the other podcasts are going to be podcasting about this in detail as well. So that's pretty much a summary of the conference. The bottom line is, if you can go, you need to go. I mean, there were how many? There were 1,800.
Yeah, the hotel was completely sold out.
Yeah.
And then there were people actually having to stay at other hotels that were attending the event.
Right.
Because the hotel was full. So,
right.
Yeah, they said 900 couples.
All right. Well, let's get into some of the nitty-gritty.
I like the nitty-gritty.
Yes. So one of the
because we're so experienced now, we only went to one workshop this year, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
but
we had another agenda. So we only went to one workshop, but we are glad that we went to that one. And that one was put on by John and Jackie Melfi, and they are the owners of Colette, and they also have a lifestyle blog, and they did one of the sessions.
Their blog is called Open Love 101.
Open Love 101, and we'll have a link to that. And they did a session on jealousy, and I mean, I had two reasons to want to go to that. Is first of all, I think she's extremely hot, and I just wanted to.
That was probably like 90% of the reason. Yeah. She was gorgeous,
yeah,
and her husband happened to be extremely hot as well.
Yeah, so that's pretty much the reason we went. And the other reason is because we had experienced some jealousy, as you all know, if you've listened to episode 3. So we wanted to hear their story about it, and it was almost completely. It was very much similar to ours, but it was opposite. She was the one that experienced the jealousy there, where it was me, in our relationship.
Right. So it was so interesting listening to her share her story about how she felt when her husband had this encounter that, again, was not intended to hurt her, but it was her perception of it. And, so Mr. Jones was really zoned in on watching her share that expression of jealousy and confusion, and why do I feel this way? And I know he didn't do anything, but I still feel this way. And then at the same time, I was watching John, her husband, and watching the emotions flow across his face, because he is the one that inflicted that pain on his wife extremely innocently.
In his perception.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So I was watching his face, and all the emotions going across his face as she was telling her story were the exact same emotions I felt. And I was just completely locked in on him.
I know. I was doing the same thing with her.
I know. And I mean, I was crying because the bond that they have and the emotions that they were sharing were just, it was deja vu.
Yeah.
Like you said, except gender-wise, it was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So when it was over, we were able to go up and we talked to Jackie, the wife, and Mr. Jones was able to express to her, kind of just in brief our situation, and it was really meaningful and very touching that they were willing to put themselves out there that much.
Yeah. So that was the only workshop that we went to, and then. There was a thing called Podcast Palooza that was supposed to happen this weekend, and I do give credit to Bob and Tess for opening this opportunity up to all the podcasters.
And we're so grateful for that.
Yeah,
to actually put podcasters out there.
Yeah, it was a little bit unorganized just because it was the first time.
Yeah,
and it's really not a bad
No.
a slant on anyone, but
and I think we've learned from it. So I think next year we can probably offer up some suggestions and take some of the burden off of their shoulders and figure out how to kind of organize it ourselves.
So we thought we were going to have this room, a table in the hallway to record snapshots. And what it turned out to be was a small room next to where they were doing registration that nobody could really find. And they didn't have a sign-up sheet at first. And it was really, we knew that probably wasn't going to work. But then the podcast session that we were all supposed to be in was Friday. And unfortunately, at a swinger convention, 10 o'clock in the morning might as well be 6 in the morning.
It was painful. It was painful for us. And we were like totally stoked about going to it.
Right. So fortunately, well, let me just give you the backdrop. So here are all of the podcasters that were in attendance at Naughty New Orleans. And if you don't listen to them, but you should, and if you want to hear their view of how this conference.
I think we all have a different spin on it. Yeah.
But what happened was John and Allie from Swingercast brought their microphone and they recorded the podcasting session that we did. And Swingercast is, by the time that this podcast that we're recording is released, it's probably already out because John said he was going to try to put it out tonight or tomorrow.
And this is August 7th, by the way.
Yeah, so you should be able to go to the Swingercast and in iTunes and see you can hear the recording. So there were several podcasters there. There was 2 or More to Tango, and there was Swingercast with John and Allie, and there were the Swapfoos, Mr. and Mrs. Swapfoo, Jay and Angie from Average Swingers, Paige and Penn from Swinger Diaries, John from Blissbringers, and then Mr. and Mrs. Jones. And so what is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 14 podcasters, and I think there were about 8 attendees that showed up.
We didn't have a lot of guests come, but that's okay. The guests that were there were really engaging.
Yeah, but we turned it into a podcast. So John recorded it, and we had a blast.
We had fun with each other.
Yeah, we did.
Oh my gosh! We had met a lot of the podcasters before, but a couple of them we had not met. We hadn't met Swinger Diaries, and we had not met John from Blissbringers.
Right.
And oh my. You talk about a bunch of crazy people in one room.
Yeah, so we asked ourselves questions.
Yeah, we did.
And then the attendees asked some questions too, and it really turned into a really neat session.
It was.
And so there wasn't a large turnout, but the fact that John recorded it and is going to turn it into a podcast allows you all to go and hear that session too. So that was just a lot of fun. And the podcast community now is coming together. And one of the things that we talked about, and I think Mr. Swapfoo brought this up, is, what can we lifestyle podcasters do, to kind of come together and do some cutting edge things and some fresh ideas and
to help the community.
Yeah, to help the community.
To be a better resource.
Yeah, that's right. Because there are not that many resources for people to go to when they're thinking about swinging. And so the podcast community is trying to galvanize a little bit and think ahead and think of how can we, because the thing about everyone there is everyone has a different style.
You know what I loved about it? There's no competition.
Right. That's, yeah.
We all just want to encourage each other. I mean,
right.
Of course, Swingercast is the gold standard because they've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
John and Allie, he pretty much figured out how to develop the podcast and get it out there as far as being a resource for swingers. And the rest of us have kind of jumped on board at, various times after him. And it's so awesome because there's no competition. We just all want to help each other.
Right. And so we're brainstorming now as to how we can better market and communicate out and tell people about podcasts and what they are and what they mean. So that was a lot of fun. The other thing that we wanted to talk about was there was an award ceremony, and thank you all. I think they had said that there were about 6,000 people that voted.
Yes. For
all of the different podcasts. And if you didn't hear, the winners were Michael and Holly from Playboy Radio.
I guess, yeah.
And then rounding out the top 3 were Life on the Swing Set and Swingercast. Yeah. So it was a really nice ceremony. Boy, it went a little bit long. But there were a lot of awards, and I'm not.
It was before the dance on Friday night, and everybody was itching to get the DJ in there and get the party started.
Yeah. But Bob and Tess did a good job. They had presenters, they had trophies, they had good audio and technology. And
Michael and Holly hosted.
They were great. And, it was a lot of fun. And a lot of you all did reach out to us and say that you voted for us. And, that the main thing is that, of course, we really are touched by that, but all of the podcasters were, if you're voting for a podcast, we all took that as a sign that you are out there and that you appreciate what the podcast community is doing. And so it was an opportunity for kind of podcasting in general to be recognized. Right. So it didn't really matter, who won. We were all together and we all felt like we were on, a stage and being recognized as valuable resources to the lifestyle community.
Right.
And that was really nice. Okay, on to some of the fun stuff. Boy, they had bar takeovers every day, and there were 2 crazy ones.
They were all fun. There were 2 each day, so we went to 6 total. But 2 of them were super crazy.
Yeah, so one was at Razoo's, and this bikini contest was crazy.
It's a Miss No Bikini contest.
Yes, Miss No Bikini contest.
And it's on Saturday afternoon, so it's the end of the week.
Right.
So any inhibitions you brought to New Orleans are gone by then.
Yeah, and keep in mind that these bars, they're complete takeovers for Naughty New Orleans. So when you go through the front door, you have the Naughty New Orleans badge on, and they don't let anybody else in. So the behavior inside the bar, everybody knows you're there for the lifestyle event. And so the clothes come off and there's flirting and there's drinking and there's kissing. And boy, when these girls got up on stage, I don't even know. I don't even know how to describe it. They were all beautiful. They were all,
there were what, like maybe 12 or 15 girls up there?
There were
probably
a lot
like 15.
There were a lot of girls up there.
They were all beautiful.
And they were giving away a trip to hedonism, I think is the grand prize.
You know what I loved about all 15 of those girls? Some of them were maybe physically more Victoria's Secret model-esque than others, but they were all confident.
Well, you know what I liked about them?
They were all pretty much naked.
No. You know what I liked about them really?
What?
When one of them, like they would showcase each one of them, so that when one of them was out front doing their dance, the other 10 or 11 were just licking their lips.
Yeah.
They were just all enamored with the girl that had been dancing. So just like in the podcast thing where you mentioned that everybody it's not a competition.
Right.
Those girls were appreciating each other. You know, they were joining in.
Yeah.
You know, they were kissing each other. They were bumping and grinding and whew.
Yeah. I know.
That was quite amazing.
That was hot.
But we have to talk about the winner.
The winner was just hands down. Once she did her thing, it was over.
So there were 2 unique qualities about this winner, right?
Yes. Okay. First of all, she was beautiful.
Yes, she was.
And then she was
creative. She was creative. And you have to, we were literally 3 or 4 feet from center stage, and it was loud and people were screaming, and they had 3 for 1 beer. So I had 2 beers in one hand and another beer in the other hand, and it was chaos. And this girl starts dancing and she turns around.
Oh, she's naked at this point, in case you haven't figured that out.
She's naked. And she turns around and she bends over, and she has one of those butt plugs in that has the big jewel.
It's like a sapphire jewel.
On
like,
the back of it.
Yeah, the size of a 50-cent piece.
Yeah, and people
in her crack. Oh my God.
People went crazy when she did that. But that was only the beginning of how she won this competition. So
that was the first round. So then they narrowed it down to what, 3 girls, right?
Maybe more. I think there were, but anyway.
Yeah, so they narrowed it down to like just a few girls, because I think there were maybe, 12, 15 to begin with.
Right.
So she made the top 3, let's say.
Right.
So then they got to do their thing again.
Right.
So you go ahead, Mr. Jones. I can't even begin.
No, I want to hear your version. I want to hear you tell the story.
So we've already seen the sapphire butt plug in this girl. So then she gets up, and there's no, like, at first they gave them a pair of like neon pink, like little sexy cheeky boy short things.
They didn't stay
wear.
on
They didn't stay on long on any of the girls. So all the girls are naked at this point. So she starts dancing, And you know how the clowns will like reach over, like when they're like doing their thing, and they'll reach over and they'll start like pulling a scarf out of somebody's ear, and the scarf will be like 12 feet long. Well, she did that, but instead of pulling it out of her ear, she pulled it out of her vagina.
And it wasn't a scarf. It was one of those banners that fly behind the airplanes.
It was.
I mean, it was
You know, like when you go to the beach and the little biplane goes by, and
I mean, she started pulling this banner out.
Moe's or
coming
whatever.
And coming, and it said, and then she held it up.
It said, "Vote for me."
Vote for me. And it was hysterical. And all the other women on stage.
I mean,
started,
seriously, this thing was like 8 feet long.
They started bowing down to her.
They did.
You know, because how did you keep that? How did you get that in there? How did you keep that in there?
I mean, I just turned around at that point to Mr. Jones and I was like, game over.
That's what everybody said. Game over. You know, there's your winner right there.
The butt plug almost cinched it, but then the scarf out of the vagina,
I mean,
I'm telling you.
It just kept coming and kept coming. and she kept pulling it out, and people were really shocked. And then people started screaming, and it was obvious who was going to win at that point.
I mean, that happened on Saturday, and this is Friday night, and I still feel like I have cotton in my ears. It was so loud. I still can't hear right.
Yeah, so it was a well-deserved win. Boy, what a party that was at Razoo's. And another party was at the beach. And that
was the day before. That was on Friday.
Yeah, we loved that one too. That's just a great venue. And John from Swingercast scored us a balcony that overlooked the dance floor and the bar.
They had a foam party going.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we got to watch the foam party. It was down on like the patio area between like the main bar that was out on Bourbon Street and then this little back kind of like building that's open on one side.
Right.
So yeah, we were up on this balcony and there were probably like, I don't know, maybe 20 of us up there.
Yeah.
And most of us knew each other.
Right.
A lot of podcasters, and then people that we had met or that we had a couple of the couples
and our friends.
Yeah, our friends that we had met in previous places. So, oh my gosh, we were just dancing up there and flirting with each other, and a lot of. It wasn't just dancing. There was some like seriously dirty dancing.
Well, the only bad thing about it was we were drinking so much beer. The bathroom, you had to go down the balcony. And you had to like push your way through the whole sea of people to get to the other side. But that was the only negative side for us over 50-year-olds that need to.
But the balcony was the perfect place to watch. They had a couple dance contests.
Yes, yeah.
So Jay from Average Swingers got to participate in one of the dance contests. Right. Oh my God!
Yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah,
and they were late showing up because I tweeted out I was giving him a hard time that there was dancing going on and Jay wasn't there And we caught he and Angie in one of the...
You got a great picture of them.
Yeah, that I sent to them.
It was actually a really sweet picture.
Yeah, and then he got up... So they had girls dancing, of course, on the bar. And then after the girls were finished, they were saying, hey, come on, we need to get some guys up here. So, of course, Jay, being the bashful, shy person that he is, got up there and put a show on.
My favorite tater.
Yeah, for everybody. And so that was a lot of fun. And that's the way the takeovers are. So there's one from 12 to 3 and then one from 3 to 6. So there were 2, 4, 6 different bar takeovers, plus the one on Wednesday afternoon at the wine bar. So it is a partying place.
Yes.
So to switch gears a little bit, we're going to talk about a couple of playtimes that we had. And one thing that we didn't get to do last year was to go to Colette. So Colette is a swing club, a lifestyle club in New Orleans, and it's owned by John and Jackie Malfi that we mentioned before. But when you attend the conference badge gives you a free admission to Colette either Wednesday night or Thursday night.
And if y'all have been listening to us for a while, you'll know that like going to a lifestyle club was our last frontier.
Yes.
We've done house parties, we've done meet and greets, we've done big ones and small meet and greets, but we have never been to a club. So we were so excited.
Yeah, so the evening started for us because we have friends that we met online that are from New Orleans, but they were not actually attending Naughty in New Orleans.
Because they had to go out of town for the weekend.
Yeah, they had to go out of town. They couldn't attend. And so originally we were going to have breakfast with them to catch up with them and meet them. But then that didn't work out. So we said, well, why don't we meet for drinks on Thursday night? So on Thursday night, we met them at I think it was the Roosevelt Hotel.
Yeah, gorgeous hotel. Oh my goodness.
Really historic
yes.
looking hotel. And the
well
bar,
decorated.
the bar inside was the Sazerac.
Yep.
Yep, the Sazerac bar.
I had a sleazy club dress on. I was so embarrassed.
Why were you embarrassed?
Because this was a classy hotel. And here, I know we were in the middle of the French Quarter of New Orleans, but still.
Yeah, classy is relative.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, my club dress covered everything it needed to cover, but yeah.
And really our approach to meeting them, I mean, we had corresponded with them a few times online, and just through, I mean, sometimes when you correspond with people and you share pictures, there's an instant level of comfort that you have with this couple, and we were really looking forward to meeting with them. And so we went there with no expectations at all, at least at first.
More to follow on that.
Yeah, and we had 2 or 3 or 4 drinks and just had great conversation, and it was so good to get to know them. And it was a bit of a break from the conference because they weren't attending the conference. So it was almost like we had this date for 4 in the middle of this conference. And so we kind of slipped away.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the conference at all with them, really, other than we were having a great time.
No. And, you know, we got 3 or 4 drinks in us. And then what we were going to do is you and I were going to head to Colette because we wanted to go to Colette that evening. And it
was literally around the corner. Yeah.
And when the evening was starting to wind down, and we said, hey, you know what, we're going to go to Colette. You know, if you guys are interested in coming along with us, that would be great. But if not, you know, it was really a fun time. And to our surprise and really...
Mr. Jones has a very victorious look on his face right now.
They said, sure, we'd like to go to Colette. Well, so that's the very moment when things changed, because up until that point in time, it really... I guess I was thinking about it in the back of my mind, but it wasn't. You know, there's a time when you're with a couple and it's no expectations, and then at a certain point in time, sometimes there are expectations. And so when they said they wanted to go to Colette with us, all of a sudden, my mind like went into a different gear because.
And that was when I was like, "What is he up to?" I mean, this couple was very attractive.
Yeah.
And I didn't really.
I didn't see you kicking and screaming.
No, I was not kicking and screaming, but I don't know. I guess I was a little naive. I didn't really see it coming because I thought it was just strictly going to be a platonic evening. They're very new in the lifestyle, relatively speaking.
Yes.
And I think they were kind of looking at us as mentors, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
Well, we mentored them.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they know what they're doing.
They held their own pretty well.
Anyway, so the 4 of us went to Colette. What a wonderful experience.
Yes.
What a beautiful club. You know, people told us it's a little small. We have no perspective because we've not been to
love the
another
fact
one.
that it was small. It was just
It was
intimate
cozy.
and cozy, and I just felt really comfortable there.
And this is where the fact that we talked with Jackie and John after the jealousy episode comes to payback, because when we walked in, they were sitting there at the front of the club, and we went up and they recognized us from the session because we talked to them. And we said, hey, we brought some friends. And she said, well, let me get the manager and we'll give you a personal tour. And so they took us on a tour, and a beautiful downstairs, the bar, the dance floor, and we gave them our mixers and we looked around downstairs. And then there's an elevator and there's a stairwell, a staircase to the upstairs. And they took us upstairs, and oh my gosh, the rooms. So there was semi-private rooms, and the semi-private rooms had an entryway, but were they sheer curtains?
They weren't very sheer. Yeah, they were like sheer curtains, but they were actually pretty thick. So you could kind of maybe see light through them, but you couldn't really see shadows through them.
So the semi-private rooms didn't have a door. They had a sheer curtain, and you'd go in and there was a bed that 4 people at least could fit on. And then next to that was another sheer curtain to another bed.
So I think there were like 3
3 or 4
beds.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on the right side, there was that room where...
It was like a voyeur room.
Yeah, you had double what is it?
Yeah,
Double-sided
two-way glass
mirror
or whatever, two-way mirror, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
that's
so
called.
you could see in from the outside, but when you're on the inside, you can't see people looking at you. And there's a big bed in there, and there's people that have sex, and people watch from the outside, or you can go inside and participate. And what other rooms did they have? They had a big group room.
Yeah, I can't really remember because we only played in that little safe, cozy room.
Yeah,
that room.
Well, so what happened was, about that time, somebody got up and left, and we saw them cleaning up and preparing putting fresh sheets on.
Well, and they had some like sofa groupings before you actually got to those rooms. And you could play on those sofas,
That's
I think.
That's right.
Or you could just kind of hang out and kind of wait or whatever.
Right.
And we ran into friends of ours.
Right.
And that was pretty cool because we got to introduce them to our new friends. And
right. So we ended up, I said, hey, let's grab this room. And then they said, oh, we probably need to talk, which was a good step number one.
Yeah.
Very,
so it's
very
like we
good.
were testing them and they passed the test.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yes.
We were testing.
Right.
And they passed. And I said, okay, we can talk, but we need to talk in here before somebody else takes this bed. So they came in and we talked and we said, we can do whatever y'all are comfortable with or nothing. And they said, no, we're comfortable with soft swap. And boy, it was very,
Mr. Jones was bewitched.
Yeah, it was very sensual, and
it was easy.
I don't know that we've ever been
really
with
wasn't awkward.
I don't know that we've ever been with a couple for that short of a period of time that I felt so comfortable and connected.
Yep.
So, we did soft swap with them, and we're going to come back to some more details there later in our snapshots, but just enjoyed a very relaxing, very fluid, very connected time. And of course, since we had a great experience in the playroom, we have a favorable opinion of the club.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but just a wonderful club. So if you're ever in New Orleans, and I understand they own one in Dallas too, we would recommend. And what a great first club experience for us.
It was a very good experience. Yeah, we felt comfortable there. It wasn't, overwhelming. People there were very respectful. Nothing was tacky that put me kind of out of my comfort zone.
Right. So that kind of was the start of the weekend. Now comes the big night. So a lot of shit happened this time. And we're jumping ahead now to... This was the next night. This was Friday night. So while we were at the beach
where that balcony was, and we were all up there being crazy. Yeah,
talk started about trying to put a large group together for that night, or in the orgy room.
Because we were pretty hot and heavy up on that balcony.
Yeah, and there was it was interesting. There was a lot of negotiating and a lot of who's going to take the lead, who's going to organize this, and who's going to be included in this. And I was trying to stay out of that. Because we've never done anything like that before, but we got invited, and at that point in time,
and I was in because I had kissed a lot of girls that day, and actually we were dancing with everybody. We were just kind of dancing up there and just rubbing up against all the guys, and it was just hot and sexy, and whew.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hot outside, but it was steamy up on that balcony.
Yes, it was steamy. So we thought, okay, well, we're in.
Yeah, I was in.
Whatever it is that you guys are talking about, we're in. And so that later in the day, did we crash and go back and take a nap?
No, we
should have.
We had that award ceremony that night.
Yeah. So anyway, there was a lot of time between the time that we planned it and the time
we had to go. When we left the beach, we didn't have time. We had to shower, and then we went to dinner.
Right. And then we had to leave dinner early to go to the award show.
Right.
And then the award show went long. And after the award show, we went back to our room and we changed. And then we went to our friend's room where they were going to gather before they went into this orgy
So we
room.
didn't really get to participate in the planning of the thing.
Right.
Because of the award ceremony.
Right.
It kind of left us out of the loop a little bit.
Okay. So then here's what happened. And you can interject if I'm not, from my perspective.
Okay.
So you and I, along with a lot of other people, went to the room of our friends.
Yes.
And when we walked in their room, I was behind you, and everyone started talking. Okay, the party's really starting now. The Joneses are here, and I think Swinger Diaries walked in about the same time, and we were the last ones to arrive. And there was a little bit of small talk, and then people said, okay, let's go to the room, right?
Right.
So as everybody was filing out of the room, I got a little bit ahead of you, and I walked into the room before you did. And it was a big, large, open room.
It was a group playroom set up for orgies.
Yeah, right. And every room is different, but this room, all of the beds were pushed together, and there were absolutely no shears and no curtains between any of the beds.
No, Mr. Jones and I have never played in a room like that before.
Right. So it was very open, and there were people in there already. There weren't a lot of people in there, but there were people, and it looked like that there were just couples in there playing with each other.
Pretty much, yeah.
So when we walked in, a friend of ours, the husband was behind me, and he turned to me and he said, hey, we know that Mrs. Jones is not comfortable with everybody here, so we're going to go and towards the back wall to the back room of the back mattress with you all.
They were preparing 2 mattresses for us. Like this is one thing I love about Naughty New Orleans. They have staff members that work the playrooms at night, and when somebody's done playing and they get up, they have people that come in and they strip the bed from the sheet, the sheet off the bed. They spray it with antiseptic spray, and they wipe it all down. They dry it off, and then they put a fresh sheet on there, right, so that it is sanitary, it's clean,
right,
and you don't feel like you're going to lay in a wet spot.
Right.
So they were preparing 2 adjacent mattresses for our group to play on.
Right. And there were more mattresses already adjoining to those 2 that had already been cleaned.
Yeah.
It was a huge room.
Yeah.
So our friend made the comment to me that, okay, we know Mrs. Jones is not comfortable with everybody here. And when he said that, I was like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean she's not comfortable? And right away I was on high alert because you and I had talked and we were okay. And then somebody else was telling me you weren't okay. So I immediately went to find you and said, do we need to talk? And you had this look of this deer in the headlights look on your face.
I was panicked.
And I said, I think we need to step out. And so you and I stepped out of the room, and I was trying to pull you against traffic to go down the hallway so that we could find a place to talk. And then I turned around, and another couple had followed us out. And you had stopped to talk to them. And at that point in time, I realized there was some confusion and that there was something going on that we needed to talk about. So what was going through your head at that point in time?
I honestly don't remember walking out of the room. I was that scared. I walked into the room, this big group room, and there were just people having sex everywhere. There was nothing intimate about it, and there was nothing sensual about it. It was a sexual room.
Right.
And we were with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 couples, and there were more on the way.
Right.
So there were 6 couples already there, and we knew that there were at least 1 or 2 more couples on the way. And all of a sudden I realized that wasn't my style.
Right.
And I didn't know that until we walked into that room.
Right.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Our friend who, the room that we went into, or that kind of orchestrated this whole thing, they were kind of the organizers of the whole thing, somewhat reluctantly organizers, but they were the organizers of the whole thing. She said that when I walked into her room and she looked at me, she was like, uh-oh, Mrs. Jones is not in the right frame of mind to be here.
Right.
And so she saw it before I did. And poor
Right.
Mr. Jones was standing behind me, so he was kind of clueless.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that because I was behind you. And there was a lot going on in the room, and I really wasn't paying that close of attention at that point.
So the dynamic was that there were a bunch of friends that we had met throughout the week that we felt really connected to friendship-wise. Right. As far as playing, it had never really come up. It wasn't that we were necessarily opposed with it. It is just, it had never come up.
Right.
So that was kind of an unknown.
Right.
But there was one couple there that had connected with a couple of our friends, and they had spent a lot of time with this couple during the week. She was, they had a relationship where she was an actual dominatrix,
right,
and he was her submissive, and that was the way they connected with each other sexually, and that was somewhat intriguing to Mr. Jones because we've never been around a couple like that before, and Mr. Jones is much more intrigued by the whole BDSM community than I am.
Right.
And I realized that while we had dinner with this couple and conversed with them at dinner, I had never made a connection with them. So all of a sudden, I'm in this group room and I'm around people that, I had been friends with, and I think they're just beautiful people and I love talking to them, but I had never made a sexual connection with. And then I'm with this couple that I don't understand. The BDSM thing, I don't understand. And
the thing I think the word that you mentioned to me later was you didn't feel safe, and not safe in a threatened way, but just safe,
emotionally safe,
yes. or an environment where you could have fun.
Right.
And so we left, and I needed to talk to you. And another couple walked out, and that couple was Paige and Penn from Swinger Diaries.
Right.
They walked out too. And we hadn't yet talked to them, so we didn't know if they came out just to make sure you were okay, or if they came out because they weren't comfortable with what was going on.
And I felt terrible. If they would have come out because they were worried about me, I would have felt absolutely horrible.
Right. So what happened was you started talking with them, and I kind of rudely grabbed you from them and said, wait a minute, before you talk to them, you and I need to talk.
Right.
Because something has changed and you and I need to talk. So I pulled you aside and you started to share that exact sentiment with me that you just shared. And then at that point in time, I think this is where we did the right thing. We had a choice here. We could either go back to the room.
And I would have cried and
you could have
felt
cried
awful
the rest of the night.
Right.
Or we could go back and talk to Paige and Penn, and we listen to their podcast. We know they're more experienced than we are. And we had a connection with them. And so we thought, well, let's opt for plan B. Let's go ask them, find out why they came out. And if they want to hang with us, let's go find another bed. And at that point in time, I wasn't in a frame of mind to play because we had just been disrupted and I wasn't comfortable and you weren't comfortable. And I said, well, let's just see if they're interested in going and grabbing a bed and talking for a while and just see if we can work through this.
And I felt terrible because I didn't want to ruin their night too. I'd already ruined our night. So I didn't want to ruin their night.
Well, you thought you did.
I thought I did.
Yeah, you thought you did. And then they assured us, she said, you know what, I'm not really comfortable in that environment either. And I'm glad you left because that gave me an opportunity to leave, as well. So once you realized that they left because she wasn't comfortable, you felt better. And the four of us started talking. So we got a bed in the sensual room, the white room.
Right.
And the white room is...
no, that wasn't the white room.
Wasn't?
No, I don't know what the name of that room was. It was the long room that it must have had like 6 or 8 beds.
Oh, right.
Next to each other.
Right.
But again, the beds were next to each other, but they were separated by shears and beads. Right. And it was really, really dim in there. You could see, but it was dim. So it was just a very laid back kind of room. And
so the four of us went into a bed and we immediately started talking, and you started like purging what was on your mind.
And they were so wonderful.
And they were
so patient, and they listened, and they just, they said, group settings aren't necessarily our cup of tea either. We've done them and it can really be hit or miss.
Right.
And don't feel bad about it. And because I honestly did not think it was going to be a problem until I got in there.
Right.
And like I said earlier, I do not remember leaving that room. I just remember being panicked.
Right.
I think I had like a literal panic attack. It was awful.
Anyway, we're going to skip ahead because we're going to talk about this more later. But at some point in time when we were talking to them, the two of you,
we stopped talking.
You stopped talking, and the two ladies started kissing.
Yes.
So Paige and Mrs. Jones started kissing, and about that time I realized, oh, okay,
I think things are better.
I think she feels better. And so we ended up like evolving or progressing from like talking and therapy to all of a sudden playtime.
Yeah. Hey,
And
this is fun.
And it was a really natural kind of a hot time, and we'll talk more about that later. So we had a nice soft swap session.
But you know what I realized? I mean, as awful as that experience was, because on top of everything else, I ended up hurting my friend who thought that it was, you know, she took too much responsibility upon herself for the fact that I walked out.
Right.
And I feel terrible about that. And she and I have talked, or well, the four of us have talked, and we have, you know, come to an understanding of what really happened, and that it had nothing to do with them. And I felt terrible about that. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for you.
Right.
You can't be a people pleaser when you're getting ready to have sex with somebody.
Right.
If it doesn't feel right, you need to excuse yourself.
Right.
And luckily I had the sense to excuse myself before things became active.
Right.
Versus, you know, just saying.
Okay. And what happened next is even crazier.
Yeah.
So we went from the panic in the
group
room to therapy session, and then playing in with the Swinger Diaries in the other room. I don't know if it was
pity sex or not, but it was working.
So we got up and we left there and we said, let's go get a piece of pizza, because we never get the pizza. That's my
2 years in a row we have never gotten the pizza.
Major complaint about that. But while we were down there, I said, well, wait a minute. I think John from Blissbringers is doing a BDSM or a kink demo.
Yeah, they have a couple dungeon rooms.
And you have always adamantly opposed having anything. Let's just go on record to say, let me say that again. You have always been adamantly opposed to being any kind of interest into that at all.
Yes, you are right.
Not only that, but you accuse me of being the one that has an interest in that.
Yes, I have.
So Mr. and Mrs. Jones and Paige and Penn walked down the hallway, and we peeked around the corner to see what John was up to. And Paige,
she stuck her head in the door,
and John
he saw
her, and he immediately came running out, and he said, "Oh, come on in!
He grabbed her.
Come on! I just finished with somebody else. Come on in!" And he was so excited to see us, and so we went in. And
Paige finds it intriguing too, but I think she's dabbled just enough to know that it's not really for her, but she still finds it super intriguing.
So you and Paige and Penn stayed in the back of the room, and I was curious. So I went up with John. I said, John, show me your thing. Show me your toys, your tools. You know, how does this work? And so he is like getting more and more animated, and I am really liking this guy because he is really into his shit. I mean, he loves it, and you can just tell he
knows what he's
passionate.
doing. Yeah,
you're giving it away.
Oh, sorry.
So then he gets out this violet wand, and he's like hooking us up, and he puts the grounding wire inside of his britches, and he starts touching my arm, and it's you can feel the static. And I said, oh man, that's an interesting. And he turns around, he goes, go get your wife. You know, go get Mrs. Jones.
So in the meantime, Mr. Jones is up there with John. Paige is like lurking. She's like in the front because they have actual chairs set up in the dungeon room where you can just come and observe. They have like several rows of chairs. They can probably get 30 people in there.
Right.
And you just can sit and observe. There's like a St. Andrew's cross in there, and there's like this sawhorse thing that you can kind of lay over in there and all this stuff. So Paige is just like up there peeking around. She's at the front of all the chairs, not quite up there where Mr. Jones is. Penn and I are standing in the back, and Penn looks at me and he says, are you into any of this? And I said, no.
You said, absolutely not.
Right. I think I said, no, not at all. I said, Mr. Jones finds it extremely intriguing, but I said, I can't even participate with him because I said, if I try to spank Mr. Jones, I feel like I'm hurting him, and then I'm inhibited, and then, of course, it doesn't work because it's not sexy if you're afraid.
Right.
And Penn said, yeah, I'm not really into it either. So he and I are just kind of lurking in the back.
So about that time is when I walk up and I grab you by the elbow, and I said, hey, John needs to show you something. So I drag you all the way up to the front, and John's got his violet wand, and he starts using it on you. And your reaction was, oh, okay, well, that doesn't shock me. That's not bad.
It didn't really hurt.
And then
no.
Paige and Penn kind of wandered up. And then John realized that he had kind of lured you into his web. And the next thing I know, you've taken your robe off and you're there in your bra and your panties and you're laying across that.
Because John told me to.
I know. And you did it. And I don't know what the thing is called. It's like the sawhorse thing with the leather pad on it. And you're laying across that. And he puts a blindfold on you. And I am like, I'm like an hour ago, you were freaking out. And now you're laying on, this contraption.
Okay, maybe an hour and a half ago I was freaking out. Then we had like amazing sex. So I'm like in that post-sex
I realize that, honey. What I'm saying is, in my mind, an hour ago you were freaking out,
well, that's true.
And now you're laying and doing something that you said you would never, ever, ever want to do and have any interest in. And once John got you there, he was like, it reminded me of a choral conductor. He was like a maestro, and you couldn't see, but he got all of his things out, and then he had Paige and Penn and myself, and we had different items that he wanted us to use. Like Paige had a pair of gloves on it with the sharp, steel sign of, the prickly things on them. And then I had an oven mitt that had fur on it, and and Penn had something different, and John was going at you with the violet wand, and then he got. He would get a flogger out and try that a little while. And he tried all these different things, and he's moving around and he's moving us out of the way. And then he starts spanking you. Well, I know that you've never liked that. And you said you don't like that. And he started spanking you. And I'm looking at that point in time.
But he was using his bare hands, right?
Honey, what I'm saying is I expected you to just pop up off of there and say, this is crazy. And I'm looking at you and you're not moving. And then all of a sudden, you said something about it feeling good. And I'm like, I'm in the twilight zone.
It didn't hurt.
Honey, you weren't saying it didn't hurt. You said it felt good.
I did.
Yes. There's a big difference from saying it doesn't hurt and it feels good. And when John hears that, and he is all the time, he is watching your body, he's watching your reaction, and he's gauging how much more he can escalate this and what he should be using. In the meantime, he's moving around you. And at one point in time, he gets 2 floggers. And he's doing this like ninja dance around you with these 2 floggers.
That was my favorite.
And smacking you. And it looked like he was smacking you hard. And you're not even moving.
He knew what he was doing. It didn't hurt.
Right.
It felt good.
Right.
And I tried. You know what it was? Is I knew you were right there. I couldn't see you, but I knew you were there. At one point I got a little like off center, I guess. And I remember saying, "Where's Mr. Jones?" And then you said, "I'm right here." So, and then I was fine. And I don't know, there was a lot of trust.
Well, and to contrast that with the orgy room, in the orgy room, it was open, it was large, and you did not have a blindfold on, and you could see me, but you didn't feel safe.
No.
And here you were with John. You had a blindfold on.
And I had just met John a couple days ago.
You couldn't see anything, yet you felt safe.
Yes.
Because he was in tune with you. And
I could sense that.
And he got to the point, the point where he stopped was he put these 3 like Edward Scissorhand things on his fingers, and he had the violet wand, and that shocked you. And you came
I remember it was like my lower back
and
he touched.
And you jumped, and he said, "Okay, we won't do that anymore." And then he stayed right there. He didn't go any higher than that, and he was moving around, and then one time he like straddled you, and your ass was red. I mean, he was spanking your ass, and I cannot believe that you're laying there.
I know.
And you're liking this. And of course I'm enjoying it. I'm taking it all in, going, I knew it. I knew that you had this inside of you. And
oh no, I'm busted.
Yeah. So the long and short of it is, he finally finished, and you got up, and he was so proud of himself, and he was so happy that he introduced you to something that, that previously you said
and he
that you
knew
didn't
I
like,
wasn't interested
he
in that. I
knew,
had never done it before.
right? And he had this sense of accomplishment that, you know, he was successful in his craft because he's converted, you know, somebody over. And anyway, we went back to our room, and that ended the evening. But that whole span from the time that we walked into the orgy room to the time that we left there and talked with Paige and Penn and played with them and then went to John, that whole evening was just...
It was surreal.
It was surreal, right? But I'm glad that we didn't go back to the room after the bad experience.
Oh, I know. That would have been awful.
Yeah, so...
thanks to John and to Paige and Penn for...
well, and thanks to you, because you could have said, I'm done. You know, that's it. You know, we're out of here. I'm back. You know, I have ruined it. But you didn't do that, and the evening turned out to be amazing, and we learned a lot about each other, and I learned especially a lot about you. So...
Whew, it was hot.
Yeah. So
I mean, it turned me on. I would have never, ever expected that in a million years.
Right.
That was probably the biggest surprise of the whole weekend.
And then when we got home, John sent us an email, and he said something about, I think the missus has some
unexplored
kink curiosity in there that we need to kind of address in the future. And I said, John, I think you're right. And thank you very much for bringing that out. So Mrs. Jones, you're a bad girl.
I am a bad girl. Whew.
Wow.
So thank you, John, for introducing me to a side of myself I haven't seen before.
Yeah. So hot, steamy, sexy, and naughty in New Orleans. And there's a whole lot more that we're going to talk about later that we're going to get to in just a minute. But that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to highlight of the weekend. It's impossible to talk about everything, but we're hopeful that if you listen to other podcasters that were there, you're going to get, if you put the whole story together from all of us, you'll get a good idea of what the conference is all about. And boy, we're going back.
We are. And I'm sure it'll be different every year we go.
And they're changing the dates. I think it's July 6th through 10th.
It is.
Next year.
Yeah.
So we want to see you there. We met some of our listeners and had a great time. So.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, it's Snapshot time.
All right.
All right, we'll be right back.
Okay, well, welcome back to our Snapshot segment. It is so hard to pick one snapshot from the whole weekend.
It wasn't for me.
Oh, my, okay. I know, honey. You guys will understand in a minute. It was just absolute sensory overload for like 4 days straight. So if I have to pick a snapshot...
There were a bunch of snapshots.
There were totally a bunch of snapshots. And we actually have a couple more that we're saving for another opportunity. But...
By the way, you have this like see-through... This dress that you have on tonight, it's got holes all over the place.
We've been talking for an hour and a half and you just noticed my dress.
Your nipples are sticking out through the little
you
thing.
just noticed.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's probably because I've been talking about getting flogged and playing and... going to clubs, and I'm a little worked up.
Yeah, I have another.
Sorry,
I have a podcast snapshot now. I'm sorry
because I'm so sexy with these headphones on.
Yes. Well, they're black. They match your dress.
Well, they do match my dress. Yeah. Anyway, so this, as you know, this was our first experience at a club. So I think I have to go with the club snapshot. And we were in this room at Colette. It was private, but not really. It had, curtains in the front where you entered the little room, and then there were curtains on one side where you were kind of sort of connected to the bed next to you. So you could see the people through the semi-sheer curtains that were hanging down, but you could totally hear them because you could really literally reach over with your arm and hit their head on the side of the bed. So coincidentally, there's 1,800 swingers at Naughty New Orleans, right?
Right.
So... who's in the bed next to us but friends of ours from Washington, D.C.
Yes.
that we have played with more than once.
And how did we realize they were there?
Well, so we started playing with our new friends from New Orleans, and we were just kind of getting warmed up and getting engaged. And all of a sudden, this adorable head peeks through the curtains. She pulls the curtains aside and she sticks her head through and she says, "Hey guys." And we were like, "What the hell? You're right next to us? Are you kidding me?" So she and her fiance were like, "Yeah, hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, that was really surreal.
What are the odds of that happening?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. So we all laughed and we introduced them to our new friends, and
Right.
and then we continued on.
Yeah.
So we ended up having a good time with our new friends that we had met at what's the name of the bar?
Colette.
No. The bar that we had gone to before. It has a really sexy name.
Sazerac.
Sazerac,
Yeah.
yes.
Sazerac is a bourbon drink.
It was. You had
because
one, right?
I had two.
You had two. I had the drink that had the weird name with like that really cool gin, because I'm not a gin girl.
Yeah, it was a Sazerac bourbon drink.
So they had really interesting drinks there. So
Yeah.
anyway, our new friends had come to Colette with us, and we ended up playing with them. So it was a soft swap kind of evening,
Yes.
which was just fine.
Yeah, it was perfect.
It was perfect, right up our alley.
Right.
And we played back and forth for a while, and she and I were playing for a little bit, and then I went to him, and he and I were playing, and I gave him a blowjob for a while, and then we kind of transitioned. And at one point in the evening, Mr. Jones and I were both laying on our backs, and he was going down on me, and she was giving Mr. Jones a blowjob, and Mr. Jones and I were laying side by side, like shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
And at one point I leaned over and I kissed you, and after I kissed you, I looked back, and this was they were a beautiful couple inside and out. They were fairly young. Yes, they were young, but they had been together for a while, and they were an extremely connected couple. And that was what was most impressive about them, is that they were just so connected with each other and comfortable with the situation that they were in. So even though they were fairly new to the lifestyle, they just kind of took it all in stride. And they were both down there, and it was like, oh my gosh, look at these beautiful people spending time with us. And it was so hot. And Colette is a very beautiful club, I think.
Right. And
it's very tastefully decorated. So just the whole thing was just sensual and beautiful.
And I think that's the first time that you and I have been side by side like that, and made eye contact when he was down on you and she was down on me.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit, wow.
I
It was
know.
like, can you believe this is happening to us?
I know.
Yeah.
So, and they were just lovely people, and it was just such a positive experience.
So your snapshot was when the two of us looked at each other, and
then we looked down, and there's these two gorgeous people taking care of us in a really good way.
Yeah, that's a nice snapshot.
Yes. Whew.
Kind of makes me forget mine.
Yours ties right into it, dear.
Yeah, well, this is very unique, and I love this about the lifestyle. There are so many things that you experience with other people that you've never experienced before. And the woman, she was so beautiful.
She was.
And she was just so sensual, and she has long brunette hair.
And you know what I loved about her is that she was so unpretentious.
Yeah.
Like, does she even know how beautiful she is?
Probably not.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And all throughout the evening at the bar, she was playing with her hair, and she would move it from one side to the other. And I was just, I was captivated by that. And I've never been captivated by a woman's hair before. But the way that she held it and the way that she moved it around, it just mesmerized me. And maybe she knew what she was doing. I don't know. But I was captivated by it. But at any rate, when we got to the playroom, and the two of you were she was going to go down on me, and I think you were going to go down on him. And she had, her long hair was in front of her, and she realized that she needed to put her hair, a ponytail holder in.
Right.
And she was straddling me around my ankles and sitting on my ankles. And she leaned back and she raised her arms above her head to put her hair up. And you know me, I mean, I tell this to you, when you put your arms up in the air and your shoulder muscles engage, and I mean, that is hot.
And she had beautiful breasts.
Yeah,
yes.
She leaned back and she put her arms up over her head and she grabbed her hair and she put her hair up. I'm not taking anything away from the blowjob part of it because that was amazing. But that image of her sitting on top of me, putting her hair up, was a surprising snapshot to me, because at that point in time, I was like, pinch me. You know, I can't.
This beautiful lady's getting ready to take care of me. Yes.
It was extremely beautiful. That's what it was. That's the word. It was just beautiful. The whole act of, first of all, she's putting her hair up because she's going to go down on me. So the anticipation.
I watched her do it too. I totally agree.
Yeah. So that really, wow.
Yes.
Great snapshots. Right. So we have a little bit of a surprise for you tonight. And we're going to play, and coming up right now, we're going to play Snapshots.
Yeah, speaking of Snapshots.
Yeah, we told you earlier that we met Paige and Penn from Swinger Diaries, and we invited them to share Snapshots. And so they were kind enough as podcasters to record Snapshots that they're sharing with us. So
we might as well give a little spoiler.
Yes, let's give a spoiler.
So we met Paige and Penn when we flew into town Wednesday afternoon and our flight was delayed. And so we just got to the first cocktail party at a wine bar. And we had, Mr. Jones had corresponded probably with Penn. And, you know, we are so excited to meet you guys. We listen to your podcast and we're like, hey, we listen to your podcast too. Can't wait to meet you guys in person. So sure enough, we probably hadn't been at the wine bar a half an hour and we managed to meet them in person and just instantly hit it off. It was just awesome. So we ended up spending a lot of time with them that week. I just, the beginning of a great friendship and more. They are an extremely sexy couple. They're an amazingly connected couple. And we just really felt privileged to be able to spend time with them in all kinds of ways.
Right.
So they shared a snapshot with us, and we're going to introduce you to the beginning of the time we spent with them tonight. And then to follow up, we are going to do another episode.
We're going to do a bonus podcast.
And it's a bonus, all right.
So this will be in the near future, and this is not going to be one of our monthly podcasts. This is going to be an extra podcast. We are going to do a podcast in collaboration with Swinger Diaries, and it's going to be called We Got a Swinger Diary.
Yes.
And the four of us are going to do a podcast. So when we were talking about Naughty in New Orleans, we left out almost all of the interaction that we had with them. So we're going to do a special podcast where the four of us talk about the time that we spent with each other.
From each couple's perspective.
Each couple's perspective,
yeah.
which I think is really cool, you know, because we're going to tell you the story from our perspective, and they're going to be right here in the room telling you the story from their perspective. So as a kind of a teaser about that, here are Paige and Penn from Swinger Diaries, and they're going to share a snapshot from Naughty New Orleans with you, and we'll be right back.
Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. It's Penn and Paige from Swinger Diaries.
We know you're always looking for snapshots. You put requests out for them all the time, and we know that snapshots are supposed to be a little snippet of something that you remember.
And we've got some snapshots for you. First of all, we're big fans of your podcast. We've listened to you just like you've listened to us, and we knew when we met you we were going to have a lot in common. We couldn't wait to meet you face to face.
Before we met, we imagined what you looked like, and we imagined the kind of relationship that you had, and we were not disappointed. Very similar to what we expected. Remember when we first met them?
Oh yeah, we were in the bar.
So at Naughty in New Orleans, there are bar takeovers where the whole group moves from bar to bar, just having cocktail parties. And the very first cocktail party, we got to meet the Joneses. I remember it because I was standing there talking to somebody, and I got a clap on my shoulder from this really tall, fun, charming, welcoming, friendly guy who turned me around and said, "Hey, how are you? We've been wanting to meet you." It was so nice. It didn't take me long after I talked with him for a second to look around to try to find his sexy wife.
She is so beautiful.
She stands out in a crowd. It was obvious who she was.
Well, we talked to them for a few minutes and then we got talking to other people and she happened to bump into me from behind and I just rubbed my butt against her butt and kind of grabbed her a little bit and she whispers to me, "Oh, we're going to get along just fine." We knew that was a good sign. Like, this is going to be fun.
So we knew that our show had a similar style and we have similar experiences to the Joneses, and we knew that our relationships were similar too. So we started out already far ahead of where you begin most friendships.
After we left that first bar, we went to dinner together because we needed a more intimate place to be able to talk. We knew we had so much to talk about, so much to share, so many questions that we all wanted to ask each other that we went and sat and had dinner, just the four of us.
Yeah, that was an awesome dinner because the conversation was spectacular.
It was flying so fast and everybody had something to contribute and everybody wanted to listen to what everyone else had to say.
Yeah, we talked as fast as we could, and they're so interesting and charming, and as we expected, they're just like us. We had a lot in common.
By the end of dinner, we were already easy friends, and we knew that we wanted more. We knew we wanted to see where we could take this friendship.
They were hot and sexy and charming.
We were ready.
So later on in the week, after we had gotten to know them a little bit better, we got a text one morning from Mr. Jones asking if we're interested in catching cocktails, just the four of us together.
We were up for that.
Absolutely.
We always want more time with those two.
You bet. So they suggested a very famous bar, and one of the great things about Naughty New Orleans is that it's in New Orleans, and New Orleans has a lot of famous restaurants and bars, and one in particular called Pat O'Brien's, which is where they serve the world famous hurricanes, was their suggestion. And so we said, yeah, let's meet at Pat O'Brien's. We can do that.
It was a hot day. Every day in New Orleans it was hot and steamy, but it was hot.
When we sat down at the table, a square table, four-person table, what happened was the men sat across from each other and the women sat across from each other. And so throughout the conversation, Mrs. Jones and Paige were looking at each other, and you could see the eye contact. You could see them smiling at each other and forming that connection and that bond over drinks. It was really sexy and fun.
We sat down at an outdoor table with these drinks, and the conversation got very deep and intense.
Yeah, that was what was unique about this, is as we're sipping down heavily liquored
Whoosh!
hurricanes.
I think I had mine and part of yours. It tasted so good. Be careful.
As we sat there doing that, it deepened our friendship a lot because the conversation turned from superficial things and even sexy stories to our relationships and our ambitions and
how much we love each other
Yeah.
as couples. We got very close and intimate, and it was intense and almost overwhelming. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, it almost became emotional. It was sexy and fun to be able to connect so intimately with new friends like this.
Yeah, we had to get up and break the mood because we were going to get all sappy with each other and move on to the next bar.
So as we walked to the next bar, Paige and Mrs. Jones walked ahead first, and Mr. Jones and I walked behind. The streets are narrow and the sidewalks are crowded with people. So Mr. Jones and I walked behind, and as we did, we saw the two girls in their short shorts and their bare-shouldered tank tops, and they would rub shoulder to shoulder as they walked as friends down the street. And at one point, I remember looking ahead at the two of them and looking down at your hands and noticing that you were holding hands. Walking down the street, these two girls, new friends, holding hands as we walked toward the bar. Throughout Naughty New Orleans, they have events, and one of the last events of the afternoon was the Miss No Swimsuit contest. So the idea is that Tom Strips gives away a trip to hedonism, and the winner of the Miss No Swimsuit contest represents the Naughty New Orleans conference next spring. And so they have an open invitation. Any sexy girl can get up on stage and try to get votes. And as you would expect,
these girls go wild trying to win this trip. These girls were crazy on stage.
I know.
They were naked in 2 seconds flat.
It's not enough to just parade across the stage.
No.
And it isn't enough to just take your top off.
Oh, no. They're butt naked, grinding and dancing on each other, going down on each other.
Oh, my gosh. Crazy stuff.
Yeah. That was something to see.
As you'd expect, every girl's trying to get more attention, so that they can get more applause for them. And so they're doing the most outrageous things. Now, as this is going on the stage up in front of us, Paige, who likes girls and likes the show and has had a few hurricanes,
I just pushed my way to the front.
You kept pushing closer and closer.
We're not very tall, Mrs. Jones and I. We're short, so I was pushing us up because I wanted to get in front of the guys to watch the girls on stage. So I just grabbed her hand and pushed our way up till we were about front row.
The two of you girls are shoulder to shoulder, and Mr. Jones and I were behind you because we're a little taller so we could see over your heads. But you girls are right up in front. Here you are standing side by side, right at the center stage, right in front of all these amazingly hot, tall, naked girls doing all this crazy stuff. And now we get to the snapshot that I have in my mind. Mr. Jones and I stood there and watched all this crazy stuff in the background, but in the foreground, you two girls, about the same height, Mrs. Jones with her blonde hair straight and Paige with her dark hair curly, standing side by side, soft shoulders touching, holding hands. And as I watched the show, I would occasionally glance down at the two of you until one time I glanced down and I watched the two of you turn your heads and start to kiss. Now, the reason this is a snapshot and the thing that's in my head is because this kiss wasn't like a hungry, crazy, tongue down your throat kiss. What we've both come to find is that Mrs. Jones is a sensual kisser.
You know if she's a good